Is your sales team ineffective? It's just not doing its job. And they seem to think they are doing okay, but they're really not. And you know why, and you're trying to communicate it to them, but they just don't listen. On the Bowl Live today, I have a special guest, and his whole concept is selling from the heart. The heart, right? This is Bill McCormick. Welcome, Bill.
Hey, Chris, thanks so much. Yeah, so if your sales team's like that, just fire them. Just get rid of them. No, just kidding. As you were saying, I'm like, yeah, if they're like that, get rid of them. But often, the problem actually comes from the top. But we can get into that more. But yeah, selling from the heart. My friend Larry Levine wrote this book, and I got to read it. Let's see, probably a year ago in July, and it just really resonated with me because I have a sales background, but back when I was selling, when I had a lot more hair and it was much darker, I should probably start wearing a hat like you do. I got fired or demoted for most of the sales jobs I had because I didn't play the game like everyone played. So I was in the grocery industry, and right. The amount you sold, so it was soda or cookies or chips, it wasn't predicated on how great your product was or even how much people wanted it. It was predicated on whether you could get the grocery manager Giants tickets on the 50-yard line or Yankee tickets on the first base yard line. That's who got all the stuff. And I didn't like that game. I didn't like playing that game. And so I got out of sales. But got into the service industry and found out that when I serviced my clients and I was able to provide value to them and they saw that, then they bought from me. And, and so anyway, years later, I'm reading Larry's book and I'm like, wow, he gets it. It's about serving people. It's about finding out what makes Chris tick. What does Chris like to do? Like, what does Chris know that Bo Knows was a 1980s really successful advertising campaign?
Yes, he does. I know
he does. And what was the guy's name?
Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson. Yeah. So, it's finding out things like that and connecting with people. Selling from the heart is all about connecting with people.
There's a distinct difference. B-O. I'm B-O.
True. And I couldn't find my bow tie. I have one somewhere in the house.
It would have been good on you, especially with that shirt. Selling from the heart. A red bow.
But it wouldn't have matched because the one that I have is like a blue and gold paisley. So it would have. Paisley. Yeah,
paisley, but it's brown.
It would have clashed with the red. So
there's a lot of we're getting off here. We could probably talk about that for an hour. Selling from the heart is a concept that works for anybody who applies it, I would say, right?
Yeah, definitely. Every major religion, every major Eastern philosophy, when they talk about the heart, they're not just talking about the physical muscle that beats inside of our chest. That's the heart of the cardiovascular system, like what I did there. But what it talks about is really the core of a person. We say that, we talk about athletes who come back from an injury and they're like, oh, that guy's got heart or that girl's got a lot of heart. We're not talking about that, the muscle. We're talking about what makes them who they are. And that's what selling from the heart is about. It's getting in touch with who you really are, right, so that you can serve your client and you can be there for them, and not with an agenda of, I want to sell you, but we look at people as people. What I like to say is we want to treat them in the digital space the same way as we do in the face-to-face.
Sure. Wow. That is amazing. Amazing. Basically, it's all about putting yourself in the shoes of your client, of your customer, right? And getting into understanding how they feel. Empathy, maybe.
And what they care about.
Yeah, that's right. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's about. And reading, going through the book here, it's full of stories about that. Finding your true self, your authentic self. And basically, you don't want to come on like, hi, you want to buy my stuff, with a voice like that. I mean, I could do those kinds of commercials all day long. Hey, you want to buy my car? I got a 2021 Chevy Malibu for you, or something.
We help companies just like you. Just like you. Yeah. Yeah. And kind of my specialty is really kind of more in the digital space because I came out of a LinkedIn training background.
Right.
And what we see is that what people are doing now online because of what's happened with the pandemic, and even though things are beginning to open up. Last week, I spoke at an actual in-person networking event. Like I went and spoke in front of a group of people. I was like, I loved it. Although I brought my web camera and I put it on a tripod and I held it in front of me and told people this is just to make me feel comfortable because I'm so used to looking into that screen. But when we show up online, see, we would never, I shouldn't say we'd never, because I've done this before. Maybe people like this. You walked into a networking event and you became the business card slinger. A card for you and a card for you and a card for you, and like everybody gets a card. I've done that shamelessly. I admit that I've done that.
I have to.
Yeah, but when we do that, we just turn people off. Like they might take the card, but what have we said?
This is going to end up in the trash can in a minute.
Right. Yeah. Or ends up back on their desk and it gets lost. But people on LinkedIn, in social, they're showing up the same way, where they're showing up and they're just, kind of vomiting their pitch all over people. And that's not selling from the heart, because, what I say is when we do that, whether we sell a $50 item or we sell $1 million SaaS product software, when we just sell up and try to connect and pitch, we relegate our offering to a commodity.
Yeah.
And we don't build trust, and we don't build credibility with people. And that's really when we can really make sales and really create a relationship of trust, is when we can develop authentic relationships with people and we can show meaningful value. If we can do those two things, we can build trust, but it takes time. And salespeople are very impatient. I know I am. We're also kind of control freaks. We want to control everything. And so the idea of something taking time and me allowing you to arrive at your own conclusions, that's hard to do.
Of course it is. And being in the car business, I've been gone away from that for 3 years. Thank God, actually, for that. But when I was in it, it's like, yeah, you want to take your time with these customers, but we need money today. Sell it now. Right. So you got, and if you sold 3 cars in one day, well, why didn't you sell 7?
I was going to say 4, but and that's a lot of times, sales leadership, the people, the CEOs, the CROs, the CSOs, they forget what it was like to be out in the trenches. Yeah. And they're just coming from a number standpoint of, we did this much last year, we need to do this much this year. Right. And so what are the key performance indicators? What are those KPIs that you need to do, which is 100 calls a day, 100 dials a day. You need to have 15 new conversations a day. When we do that, then people just get into this robotic mode. I like Ian Cognac. He was a huge sales rep very great sales rep for Salesforce, and he's now started his own consulting. But I heard him on a podcast and he talked about, let's get away from KPIs. Let's talk about RGAs. Let's talk about revenue generating activities. What
there
can
you
we
go,
do
RGA. I love that
to generate? And one of the things we can do is connect with people authentically and just have conversations.
Soundbite.
Well, and Chris just disappeared. And now it's the Bill Knows show instead of the Bo Knows show. So I don't know where Chris went, but there, you're back. Oh, Chris got scared.
No, that was it. You scared me. Technical issue, but that's live.
Hey, thank God for this kind of technology that we can do this, right? I mean, you're up in Glens Falls and I'm in Esperance, New York. So we're about, I don't know, what do you think that's about 50 miles away or so? But we're able to do this. And that's people want people, I remember being on a call right after the shutdown happened, and people said, "What are you thankful for?" I said, "I'm thankful for technology,
Yes.
that we get to do that."
If
But
how do you think sales and selling from the heart? Now, this would be interesting to talk about. March 2020, the pandemic hits. Everybody's shut down. You can't go making sales calls, at least not in
Mhm.
person. And how do you think the selling from the heart concept in sales in general was transformed during the pandemic? I love your take on that.
Yeah. So what happened was, so Larry wrote the book, and him and his partner Daryl have the podcast Selling from the Heart. And what they decided to do right away was form a community called the Selling from the Heart Insiders Group. So if your listeners want to check that out, they can go to sellingfromtheheart.net/insiders. There's a free 30-day trial. And but that's a small group of sales professionals that are all struggling with the same things, that come together, learn from some of the top sales trainers in the world, and mastermind that. And so that was one of the things that they did right away. And, what I saw was, what people were doing is they tried to take what worked for them before in person, and they tried to translate that into the virtual world, and
Right.
that's really where the connect and pitch kind of came from, because people couldn't, you couldn't go call on people because businesses were closed. If you were a B2B person who called on businesses in person, if you were a marketer that were a telemarketer calling people, you couldn't even do that because people weren't at their desks. They were
No.
home, and you didn't have their cell number. Maybe it rang through, but so now what do we do? Oh, I know. Everyone's on LinkedIn. Let's go over to LinkedIn and let's just start connecting with everybody. And as soon as they accept our connection request, let's pitch them our product.
Oh gosh.
And we see that carry through to today. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it
I've had
happens.
people begging me, you have to let me, you have to let me promote your pod. You have to. I'll do such a great job, and I want $500.
Right. Or the first one's free, and then
Yeah.
and because they had no way to go. And what we saw happen was, there are people that actually left LinkedIn, said, I'm not, I don't want that anymore. I don't want to
Mm,
deal with that anymore.
right.
And so, Todd Capone has a podcast called Sales History. It's about sales history. I'm not exactly
Right.
sure the name, but he talks about the fact that every great technology that's come along to help salespeople have ruined. The telephone. So the telephone came along, and we started using it. And that's, if you're old like I am, and you remember in the 80s at dinner time, the phone would ring off the hook of, hey, do you want to try our long distance service? Kids, Google long distance service. There was actually a thing, right?
Google.
But that's what happened. And so what happened was, somebody had to come up with some technology to get over, and that's where caller ID came from. But even that didn't work, and so the government had to get involved and legislate it, and caller ID, and the do not call registry was came about. Now you fast forward to the late 90s, early 2000s, and we had email, right? And so now, with one press of the button, I can send emails to hundreds, if not thousands, of people promoting
Yes.
my product or service. Well,
Mail check.
that got used so much, overplayed so much, that we had spam filters that came out, and now you could filter it. But and that didn't work. And in whatever year it was, in the early 2000s, George Bush signed the Can Spam Act. And in Europe we have GDPR, and so the government had to get involved.
Sure.
Well, now we fast forward, and now we see LinkedIn just about probably 6 to 8 weeks ago instituted a invitation limit of 100 invites. So you can only invite people to connect, only 100 people a week. And that's not a hard and fast number. It's really kind of predicated on how many outstanding connection requests you have and things like that. But it's basically 100 people. And
Right.
so that was to cut back on this idea of people using automation to just send all these connection requests. And again, we're back to this KPIs of, if I send out 1,000 connection requests and I get 15 or 20 people that accept, then wow, that's a great rate. But what I always say is when you use LinkedIn like you use the phone, and when you use email, you lose something, because they're not equal. You're not comparing apples to apples, because if you call me on my cell phone on a telemarketing call and I look and I don't know the number, I just don't answer it.
No,
And if
no.
you send me an email and I know it's a sales email, I just delete it. I don't read it. But when you reach out inauthentically on LinkedIn, when you spam people on LinkedIn, they see your picture, they see your name, they see your company name. It's much more personal. And so I think you do much more harm to yourself when you're being inauthentic on LinkedIn and you're really trying to just use it as the next easy button for you to get a sale. Then you're ending up really hurting yourself and your company and your reputation much more than those other ways.
Oh, I think so. That's crazy, because I've gotten a lot of requests and instant pitch. I mean, instant.
Yeah.
The idea, and you would agree with me on this, on using LinkedIn, is to provide value. As in, and I've heard Gary Vaynerchuk say that: give, 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 and 10 or 15 more gives, and then maybe an ask somewhere. And you provide value, and people you want to be seen as the expert in your field. And the idea of sales, maybe sometimes you have to cultivate that relationship, right? Selling from the heart, as in understand what they're going through. From if you do everything, I think, from the customer's viewpoint, client's viewpoint, you'll do fine.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we have a sales process, and we try to make our customers, our clients, our prospective clients fit into that sales process. What we have to understand is they have a buying process, and that's really where we have to focus. And so, you know, and I would say that sales happen when a relationship happens, and when trust happens. And so basically, you know, what folks can look at is how are they showing up on LinkedIn? And then how are they connecting with people on LinkedIn? And really, it'll work with any social, and it'll also work in person also, you know, the digital space and the face-to-face. But let's stick to the digital just for now. And, you know, what does your profile look like? And who is your profile about? LinkedIn will default to kind of a resume type of a profile that's all about you, because that's where LinkedIn came from. But if you're using LinkedIn for sales, if you want to attract buyers, then you have to position your profile in such a way that talks about how you help them. It needs to be about them. It has to resonate with them.
So I get that. So if you would, what is your LinkedIn profile like, yours personally? Because you want to promote selling from the heart, and that's what you're doing, right? So how, if you saw me in an elevator and we struck up a conversation, how would you tell me what you do? I guess elevator pitch. I'm looking. That's the word.
Yeah. Well, so I start by saying, oh, you know, hey, so what do you do? Hey, I'm a sales trust coach, and no, that's not an oxymoron. You know, that gets kind of a chuckle, and I'm like, yeah, I help sales teams establish relationships based on trust in order to grow their revenue.
And that's good.
Well, how do you do? And that actually is what it says on my LinkedIn profile. So if you go to my LinkedIn profile, first of all, the background banner image is branded for selling from the heart. It talks about the acronym of HEART and what that stands for. I have a good professional profile picture. So that's a good place to start. Those two things, you know, you consider that background banner image like a billboard. And you know, so if you live in the capital region of New York, and a billboard company came to you and said, hey, we're going to give you a free billboard right by the Albany Airport exit of the Northway, you know, you're like, okay, great. Would you leave it blank? Or would you put a picture of the Albany egg? Or would you put a picture of the Adirondacks? Probably not, unless you're a tourism company, right? What would you do? You would brand that with your company. You would brand that, you know, have that personal branding. So looking at your background banner image, is it branded for you and for your company? Having a good headshot, not grabbing your phone and doing the, you know, selfie. You know, go to a photographer, spend $100, get a decent headshot. But then the area, what we call the headline, the area underneath your name, let that be descriptive. You have 220 characters with spaces there. Talk about how you help the people that you help, so that when they land and they look at, they go, oh, wow, yeah, I'm interested in that. You know, I have a sales trust coach. That's kind of like what is that? That creates curiosity. It gets them asking questions. That gives me a chance to have a conversation. So just a few things, get away from the resume type of stuff that talks all about your experience in the industry, how great you are, how great your company is. While you need to believe in that, if you start with that, what I like to say is, you'll appreciate this. I don't know, Chris, if the rest of your audience will get it, depending on their age, but when you lead with all about you and all about how great you are and your company is, you sound like the adult in a Charlie Brown cartoon. Right? Right? Exactly. You can't understand them. It's white noise, because everybody says that. Everybody says they're the best. Everybody says that their experience helps them serve their clients better. Everyone says that their product, their service is the top notch. That's great. So if everybody says it, that makes it not mean much. So
listen to this guy. Listen to this guy. I had it wrong. See, I'm looking in reverse.
I know. It's I went before to touch selling from the heart, and I did this one.
Well, I try to straighten my tie, and I can't get it right because there we go. I got it.
So that's kind of where it starts, and then just quickly connect authentically with people. Just don't click the connect button and not say anything. Tell them why you want to connect with them.
Sure,
always send a note.
Without a message, it feels like spam, I would think.
Right. And some people don't know how to do that. If you don't reach out to me,
here's what I do, Bill. Maybe you could agree with this. If somebody connects with me and there's no message, what I do is I accept. If I go to their profile, check it out. So if I accept, I say, thank you for the connect. Would love a chat sometime. Here's my calendar. If you'd like, I'd like to set up just because I like to know who's connecting with me.
Right. And a great thing to do, like beyond that step, is to send a message to them before you accept. Right.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because sometimes when you accept people too soon, they jump right into the pitch, and they're kind of hoping that you do that. They're hoping that you accept so that they can pitch you. So here's what I do. And you can only do this on the desktop, right? You can't do this on the mobile. If they haven't sent you a message, the only way you can message them back is from the desktop. And so I have a predetermined thing that says, hey, Chris, thanks for the invite to connect. Typically, I only connect with people I've either met in person or have had engagement with here on LinkedIn. Can you tell me how you found me and what it was about my profile that triggered the connection request? Now, about half the time, I get a reply back that says, oh, hey, I heard you on the Bo Knows podcast. That was great. Or, I saw that post, something like that. They have a reason. Hey, great. Thanks so much. Happy to have you as part of my network. Of the other half, a quarter of them don't reply at all. Genesis song, no reply at all, because they don't know why they want to connect with me. The other quarter pitch me. Oh, in fact, they'll not even notice that I didn't accept their connection request. They'll come back. Oh, hey, Bill, thanks for connecting. We help companies just like you with their website, and we had to look at your website, and we found that your website is da 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 da.
Oh,
and they haven't even read what I said, right? So I'm trying to have a conversation, and they're talking right over me.
Bill, when someone connects with you and they're thinking they have some difficulties within their sales organization, or just a solopreneur, not one person working for himself, but they know they need help, they don't know what is that initial conversation like when you connect with somebody and you have that first conversation that they want your services?
Yeah, so if it's an individual, then we talk about coaching. So we talk about what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish in their sales journey. And we look for a way that maybe we can help them. Maybe it's just reading the book or working through the book, or maybe it's several coaching sessions. So we do that with solo salespeople, folks that aren't part of a team or don't have that kind of support. With sales teams, what we do is we'll have a talk with the sales leader, talk a little bit about what they're seeing in the area of prospecting and client management and client prospecting. And we look for an opportunity. A lot of times we'll do a free complimentary sales meeting with their sales team if they're open to that. And the only thing we ask is that we have a follow-up meeting with the sales leader to hear what what kind of takeaways their team had. And what we do there is we talk about our trust formula, which is authentic relationships plus meaningful value equals trust. And then we talk about some multipliers, which are inspirational experiences and disciplined habits. So that's kind of what we cover in that time.
Wow. Okay. And a lot of times, based on what you just said and the way you said it, you'll get a follow up with them, and they'll want to engage your services. Can you give me an example? There's probably several of a success story where a sales organization they're ready to fire everybody, say, and you come in and it's like, get the hell out of here. Oh, shouldn't have said that. Sorry. Anyway, where was I going with that? How your services turn the sales organization around?
Well, so believe it or not, I've only been with Selling from the Heart for about 5 weeks.
Oh,
so
but I figured.
Yeah, but here, let me tell you about a success that everyone is looking at. So I've been using the Selling from the Heart tactics and strategies for a year now. And what it helped me to do was become a better salesperson in the fact that I'm now focused on authentic client management. I'm looking at connecting with my clients on a human level, so I know them, so I know whether I can help them or I can refer them. One of the greatest tells of trust between of someone providing service and a client is if I'm willing to refer them to my competition. And because that's huge. But if I can't help you, that's what I'm going to do. So authentic client management, authentic prospecting, in other words, finding relationships that can be leveraged in an authentic way to find more business. And then just the idea of authentic selling, of selling from the heart. I've been a benefit of that. And what happened was at the turn of the year, I was looking to make a change, and the folks at Selling from the Heart were like, look, we want to grow. We want to add coaches. So would you consider joining the team? Because I was a client first. So that's what's really, really helped me in growing as a salesperson. I'm not the pushy guy that I used to be. Top buyers. I'm sorry.
You were
Oh
pushing.
yeah. And
you buy this thing or what?
we never think we are, but we are. But 51% of top buyers report that trust ranks top in what they find important with a sales rep. But what's sad is only 3% of them say they actually trust their sales reps.
How important would you say mannerisms are? Your facial expressions, your physical movement of your hands, or anything like that in the trust process? I mean,
well, today it's more important than ever because we're always on. Julie Hansen wrote a book, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's about selling virtually. It's about connecting with people on connecting people virtually. And I'm going to look it up. So I'm looking away right now, which is something you're not supposed to do. But what's so important right now is what's so important right now. Oh my God, Julie, I'm so sorry. I put in Julie Hansen and obituary came up.
Oh gosh. It wasn't my website. I have an obit website.
Look me in the eye. So it's called Look Me in the Eye, using video to build relationships with customers, partners, and teams. Exactly. And so these mannerisms are so important. She talks about having RBF, right? So RBF is resting business face.
Right. Oh gosh.
When you're just on the call. And one of the things that I was able to do early on in this whole Zoom thing, because we were doing Zoom before Zoom was cool, was be able to, rather than look at the screen and look where you are because you're there, is looking up at the camera, looking at that white light.
What I do most of the time. Yeah.
And you have to, because that's how you.
Does it look like I'm looking at you right now?
It does. Yes.
It does? Good.
It does. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. No. Yeah. It looks like you're looking at me on the screen, but if you look at the camera.
Directly at the camera.
Right. And so that's the difference. And people miss that. That's really important. What's really important is not multitasking during meetings. Like I just looked away because I've got two screens. people know. I detest it when I'm on a call with a client with some other people on the team, and this hasn't happened recently. This is years ago. And you look at the main player and they're doing this. And I know what they're doing. They're looking at their phone. You know, like that, you wouldn't do that in person. You know, so those men are, and leaning in, you know, leaning in when you hear something exciting, being on the edge of your seat. Exactly. Listening with your eyes and listening with your body and communicating that way is very, very important. You know, we're not going back to the way things used to be.
No,
you know, this virtual world, this hybrid world, this is how it's going to be. And you're going to have to get used. If you're not used to looking into a camera, you better get used to it, because it's not going anywhere. You know, this is very, you know, this is my third meeting of the day, and it's just before 1 o'clock. Yesterday, I did one meeting in person in 4 hours, you know, because I did some other stuff and I was running around, but I didn't, because I was out. So
much
there's trade-offs.
So much more can be accomplished virtually. And you'll get arguments on both ends.
Yeah.
Because if, like tomorrow, I'm traveling to Albany, New York, to probably down near you somewhere, to record a documentary on video. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's hard to do that on virtual. I guess you could, but it's difficult. Mm-hmm. But you can have 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 meetings a day, which some people have on Zoom, and you get zoomed out or meeting or teamed out or whatever you call it. Mm-hmm. So the pandemic did do that for us. As far as sales goes, you don't always have to meet in person, because you could pop on Zoom 2 minutes before the call, and 2 minutes after you're having lunch.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You know, when we used to go, when I would go do sales calls out in the field, what I liked was the drive between calls. I could kind of debrief, distress, like think about what happened. Now it's like, and so I'm now in this new role I'm in. I'm trying to really not do back-to-backs, just putting in some cushion in there, because I want to be able to stop and think and write my thoughts down.
At least 15 minutes.
But you know, McKinsey came out with a study back in the spring, and it said that like 85% of major companies are saying the first meeting with a sales rep, they want that to be virtual. They don't want them coming into the building, you know, because first of all, we don't know if your contact's going to be in the building. And then and back then there were still protocols and masks and, you know, how to take your temperature, those things. They don't want to worry about that. You know, one of the big things in being successful, selling from the heart, is ease of business. We have to make it easy for people. And if we're not willing to do that, then we need to get out of the game.
Sales is, I mean, I'm not in sales directly, but you're always selling something.
Everybody is in sales. Chris, you have a partner, you have a spouse.
Yes, I do. We're not. I didn't mean it that way. I was trying to come out the right way, but I'm not working for. I'm not. Darn, I am selling.
Right. Yeah.
Right now, we all do. A podcast, and it's like, hey, I might want Chris Jones on my own podcast, or I might want Bill McCormick on my own podcast, because he knows what he's talking about. That other guy, stupid bow tie. I don't like him.
He knows. He knows what Bo knows. The Bo knows.
The Bo knows. So, in your 5 weeks with selling from the heart, you've probably been enlightened quite a bit by the whole process.
Yeah, in great ways. So I came out of a LinkedIn training background, so I don't have to focus so much on that, but I still love it. I was at an event in Albany last week and spoke in front of a group of people about building authentic relationships using social. That's kind of my niche. But Larry and Daryl are great friends of mine, and Jackie, who is our director of operations. I've known them because I've been a part of their community for over a year now. So It was just a natural flow for me to go there and to work with them. And I highly encourage everyone to check the book out and get a copy. Check the podcast out. They have some great guests. I mentioned Julie Hansen. And the podcast goes by the same name, Selling from the Heart. And Julie Hansen was one of the guests back in I'm not sure, probably sometime over the summer.
What's the web address on the podcast?
If they just go sellingfromtheheart.net/podcast, they should be able to find it. But also anywhere where you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere of those places. Google Play. If you Google it and you search for it, it'll
Well, the
come up.
concepts are amazing. Just always basically think of your client before you think of yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's really kind of the bottom line with that, isn't it?
Yeah, and isn't that kind of the bottom line with life?
It is.
If we're good humans, we'll be good salespeople.
That's
if
correct.
we just marry those two together. That's kind of the parting shot, I think.
Mm-hmm. Bill, what's your favorite movie?
Geez, I'm not a huge movie person. I love the Band of Brothers miniseries, and I love Saving Private Ryan. I like war epics, and so I probably watched the Band of Brothers probably 6 or 7 or 8 times all the way through. I own it, so that's one that I really, really enjoy.
Okay. If you had a time machine, you could go back in time and visit anybody who inspired you, a mentor, somebody who's not with us anymore. It doesn't have to be anybody famous. Who might that person be?
It's really interesting. My brother shared with me a picture of my grandfather on my mother's side the other day because we look very much alike. And I realized he passed away when I was like 4 or 5. And so I think I'd really he was a vice president of a bank in Newburgh.
Oh.
And I think I'd really like to hear more of his story and find out more about him.
There you go. That's a great
William Henry Hunt was his name.
I love it. I love those kinds of answers. Bill McCormick, Selling from the Heart. He's a coach. Check out the podcast. And we're going to have you on again, Bill. Because
that's great. I had such a great time. Folks, find me on LinkedIn and connect with me, but send me a note and tell me you heard me on the Bonos. Thanks, Chris.
Do that. Live long and prosper.
I can do that too.
Yeah, you can do that too. I got out of the camera. All this left-right stuff drives me nuts.